what we're going to look at today is how to put out a oil fire, and also how not to put out an oil fire, because that's good fun. But let's have a look. We're going to do this on a very small scale and in a manner as safe as possible. We are working with 50 mils of canola oil, and this is something you might, you can imagine that you're going to cut up the onions, and what do? You put the fry pan on, you put your oil in the fire, on the fry pan, and then you walk off and get distracted by something, and all the time it is heating on the fire, on the stove. So let's simulate this. I've chosen this specifically because it has steep walls. If you were to do this in a fry pan, there's more chance for splash. So I am choosing a can so that later on we'll see if anything were to happen, this is going to go upwards and not outwards. So we are going to simulate the cooking of some onions. We turn on the element and we add our 50 mils of canola oil. So we'll start the clock. We'll see how long this takes to start getting a bit hot. The first sign that things are getting hot, and we'll see this in a minute, is a strange sound is going to happen, and perhaps you can guess what is making this sound as we are approaching about 100 degrees. So this may take a little while, but not too long. We'll come back in just a moment. Because we're using canola oil, we eat that stuff all the time, and the energy that's going to come out of this experiment is the same amount of energy that you consume when you eat it. That's one thing to consider when you see the amount of energy that comes out of this. The second thing is that we're using 50 mils roughly of oil. Later on, part of this experiment is we're going to add some water. Now you don't want to add too much water, so roughly about 1/8 of the amount you started with, or the amount that's left when you're ready to put it in. So let's see what's going to happen. Okay, right about now it's going to start making some noise, and you can hear this. This is approaching 100 degrees. We're over 100 degrees. So this is the so over 100 degrees here. So that's any water left in there is going to bubble, and that's the ticking sound you can hear. Now you want to make sure if you're doing this you have a very dry container, because, or if you've ever cooked with too much water with your oil, it starts to splurt and spit at you. So that's a dangerous part. So what we're looking for next is the smoke point. So we know here that canola has a fire point where it can maintain a flame. Now there's 4 points. The first point is the smoking point, and when it starts to smoke, and we'll see that shortly. Next is a flash point. Now the flash point is when I can light it and there is a flame that can come off the vapor, but it's not self-sustaining. After the flash point we have a fire point. Now that's when I can light it and it sustains its own flame. After that, again, the fire point or the flame point is at 379 degrees Celsius, but after that, again, is if you keep heating this at 424 degrees Celsius, it gets hot enough that it lights itself. You don't need a flame for it to catch on fire. So let's have a look at how hot it is now. Come and have a look. Now it gets more stable. Once the water's out of it, it's much more stable. 268. Okay, you can see though it's starting to reach a smoke point. Now, we've got to be ready, just in case, that if this flashes up on us, okay, it's just going to light. It's going to be flames there. You don't have to panic. It's just like a little candle burner, okay? So it's a fuel. Now, how do you put out any type of combustion is to smother it of air. Now, you do not want to put water on an oil fire, because if there's one thing we know about oil and water, it's that they don't mix. And all that's going to happen is a very hot oil is going to turn that water, liquid water, into steam, which is 1100 times more voluminous. It's going to spray the oil into fine particles, which will then catch on fire because they've got a much greater surface area. Okay, so let's have a look here. We're reaching, oh, it's 328. We're reaching the flame point now. So come and have a look at this. We might be able to see. Okay, we might be able to see the flash point. Come and have a look. Come and have a look. It's not. Don't be afraid. It's just. Okay, you can kind of hear it. Can you hear it? You can hear it starting to combust, but it's not. If I take the flame away, have a look. There's no flame yet. Okay, hold it there again. Let's see. Okay, little flames will start to come up. Okay, but it's not sustaining a flame. So let's see. It's getting hotter. 361. It's approaching the flame point of 379. And this should catch fire any second. Okay. You can hear it kind of starting to combust. Can you have a look? Still, if you have a look, nothing yet. Now it's getting quite hot over there. Here we go. Have a look at that. There's a flame point. Have a look. See the sustaining flame now? Alright, so that fuel is combusting. Now, it's not a big problem if it's left like this. Eventually what will happen is the oil will fully combust and it'll just... Okay. So we can see here that we've reached a flash point. 370. Now, there's an interesting point after this. Now, stand around there and watch. There's an interesting point after this called the auto-ignition point. So this is a point where the fuel gets so hot that it doesn't need a flame to ignite. So on canola oil, it's about 424 degrees. We're up to 400 now. It's getting hotter. A little bit more. We're getting pretty close, but you can see it's quite stable. Now, what might happen at this point is people panic if this is your fry pan. If this is your fry pan, you might panic and go, either try and knock it or throw something at it, which then spills. Or what puts out fire in most cases? Water, right? You go get a cup of water and throw it on that. Bad idea. So, I'd say that'd be hot enough now. Getting close, let's test it out. Now the auto ignition point is when we put this on and snuff the flame out, we're going to stop the oxygen from getting to the fire. We can't have combustion without oxygen. Okay, the fire's out. Now look at this. It's so hot that when I take this off, it lights up again. It's the smoke actually that's kind of catching on. Let's have another look. Okay, so now that was pretty cool. Let's go see what happens if we actually put water on this. Now, hang on. Do not do this inside. If there was a big explosion or heat going up here, it's got nowhere to go but up and out and over. So doing this outside means that any heat can go straight up, taking into account wind direction and things like that. And we are going to put some water on this outside at a safe distance. We'll snuff that out. Let's go take this outside. Now the danger here is you've got to make sure you're not going to trip. Okay, so that's important. Slow and steady, no need to rush. Okay, we're going to take this outside.
And shut it.
Hey Luce, can you turn the light on? Now there should still be a bit of heat in here. There's not quite enough to light it now. It's back below the ignition point, auto ignition point. Let's heat it up a little bit more. Right, now for the fun part, but the dangerous part. Now you do not want to stand over this and do it, obviously. You need to be well away from it. In this container, because it's got steep walls, it's not going to splash towards me, it's going to splash up. So, slowly and low down, don't rush it. 3, 2, 1. There you have it. Now you can imagine that's only with half the oil I started with left probably. If you had a larger version of that, it could be very dangerous in the kitchen. So do not put out a fire, an oil fire, with water. Hope you enjoyed it.